Author and attorney Kelly O'Connell here, delivering Enlightenment one podcast at a time. And today's subject is billionaires. And in general, and in Bill Gates in particular. And overall, we have to admit it's the best of times, not the worst of times, to be a billionaire, since the old sense of greed and inability to understand suffering of the common man is now forgotten. And people don't seem to hold a grudge against billionaires anymore. They're too busy being envious. So, billionaires are returning the love by becoming liberal, woke, and critical race theorists. And so, these have become monstrous critics of the GOP conservatives, and especially Trump, and you know other billionaires hate Trump's guts. You know it, you've seen it, you've smelled it. You've experienced it. And so they really believe they can have it all. They can be rapacious and greedy, and they can only seek wealth, which is how they became billionaires, and then end up becoming liberal, flipping to liberal, and suddenly becoming a good person. Isn't that nice? All right, I've been thinking about it, doing some study. What motivates these billionaires to become liberals? Number one, desire to be accepted and praised. 2, a desire to be saved, even if it's just salvation of the pagan or atheist form. They want to be saved in the sense of becoming a great person. Number 3, and this is especially the children and grandchildren of billionaires, guilt. It seems almost every person who inherits a lot of money feels guilty about it and tries to do something to make up for it. And often making up for it means giving it away to prove that they don't just live for money, and to make up for the fact that somehow they feel like it's unfair that they have money and other people don't. Number 4, enjoying pretending to be better than typical slobs like you or I. These guys, even though they've got this incredible advantage, they want to be better and look down on people. And they've kept it inside long enough, and now they're going to start talking down to people because they're woke. And, you know, people that are like this are Gates, Bill Gates to a certain extent, Warren Buffett to a certain extent, on and on. Jeff Bezos, richest man in history. And then a desire to save the world. I use number 5 to round it off. So I've got a list of liberal billionaires that I got from Conservapedia. Those who are over 50 billion or more are liberal. Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Mark Zuckerberg, Michael Bloomberg, Larry Page, and Elon Musk. Now, I don't know actually if Elon Musk is a liberal, because he's very good friends with Ellison, and Larry Ellison is worth $91 billion and owns the island of Lanai in Hawaii, and he has actually moved there. He's so sick of California, but he didn't move with his buddy Elon Musk to Texas. He moved over to Lanai, so maybe Musk will move over there with him. Now here's billionaires under 50 billion who they say are liberals, but once again, I'm having a little problem with this list here. Charles Koch and Julia Koch, and the Koch brothers were famously kind of conservative. They were fiscally conservative, and they were socially liberal. Rupert Murdoch is in the same one. George Soros is extraordinarily liberal. George Lucas, filmmaker, Jack Dorsey, Twitter, Meg Whitman, she was at eBay, Howard Schultz with the coffee, Starbucks, Oprah Winfrey, kind of her own category, Tom Steyer, he tried to upend a lot of races, he tried to impeach Trump and put a lot of money for it. Okay, so there's another article here from The Guardian that says, and this is from October 2018, is that basically the top titans of billionaireism, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, have taken left of center stands on various issues, and Michael Bloomberg. But they say that there's a lot of billionaires that you never hear about who are extremely conservative on taxes, estate taxes, etc., and they're trying to influence the world with that. But there is no doubt that these people have really become just ridiculously left. And it's the age that we live in. It's leftism. It's this idea that you have to embrace socialism. Somehow socialism is like it's like a buck-toothed, pimple-faced kid who falls in love with the prettiest girl at top cheerleader in school, and somehow through magic she falls in love with him, Beauty and the Beast. And I think falling in love with leftism and socialism, Marxism, is a Beauty and the Beast, because it doesn't work. It never has worked. But people can't get over this sense that leftism is what is at the center of love. It's at the center of caring for others. It's at the center of having a good life, which is totally false. I mean, it's the Marxists who killed hundreds of millions of people last century. In any event, Larry Ellison and Koch and Bloomberg and Adelson, Sheldon Adelson just died. And anyway, I'm not going to get into their donations because this is a couple of years old and it doesn't even really matter anymore. Larry Ellison hates Bill Gates, though, and that might make him happy that he's getting a divorce. Okay, so Bill Gates, is he sick of feminism? Okay, this might sound like kind of a strange question, but do even billionaires get the blues? And that's basically the name of the title of this. Is even woke billionaires get the blues over political correctness? Nobody really wants to be politically correct. I mean, it's a way to get power. It's a way to have one over on somebody else. It's a way to make people feel bad, to feel guilty. And now it's become a way to get rid of somebody's job and career and everything. But do even billionaires get the blues? Are they secretly sick of pretending to be holier than Mao? Not holier than thou, holier than Mao, Chairman Mao. We now have proof Bill Gates became tired of his properly feminist wife, who came up with the idea of giving to charity, when Bill Gates had really not given anything and was worth billions of dollars. So this is my theory. Bill Gates is married to this woman, not terribly attractive in my book, but maybe for others. And you might think, well, he's a billionaire. Why didn't he find a supermodel and marry her? Well, for one reason, because he's a nerd. Second reason is, looks aren't everything, of course. So he meets this lady, they get married, but he keeps this relationship with his ex-girlfriend. He makes a deal with his wife. He meets with the ex-girlfriend one long weekend a year, and they spend the weekend together at her beach house. Now, you've got to see this as like, who's the mythological person that had the water dripping on his forehead for eternity? It had to be like acid dripping onto this lady and Bill Gates's wife's her face every night. I mean, it just had to really take away the sense of pleasure and peace in her life. In my theory, he goes out and golfs, and he tells the people he's golfing with that he's in a loveless marriage, which means for a man it means a sexless marriage. And so he meets Epstein, and he might have been enchanted or he might have been titillated by this kind of modern Playboy Mansion type of a feel. But he had to have been empowered by the idea that he could say or do anything that he wanted around Epstein. And Epstein was not going to bust his chops. And he could ask him about the traditional questions about, men and women and how can I have a happy marriage and that type of stuff. And Epstein is not going to blow any smoke. Now, Epstein is a monster, I have no doubt. But he would still be able to give him the advice either that Bill thought he needed or wanted. So they have this bromance, and then Epstein gets, he's arrested and he ends up dying. And so Gates can't afford to be associated with him. But it has been stated by Melinda Gates and through her lawyer that the straw that broke the camel's back was Epstein. So this tells me that Epstein was obviously somebody that Melinda hated, and Bill was talking about trying to get some billions of dollars together for Epstein to manage. Now you're wondering, where did he ever get his money from? He got money out of wealthy people like Bill Gates, like Wexner, who started or bought Victoria's Secret and he's worth like $6 billion. Wexner gave him a lot of money, like $100 million for investing advice or whatever. So that is my theory. My theory is very basic, that Bill Gates was miserable in his marriage and he wanted to get out, but he didn't want to break up his family. He didn't want to lose all the money. And he met Epstein, and this is after Epstein is a convicted a pedophile. And there was still something about Epstein that drew him in, and I am arguing that in so many words that feminism does not feed the human spirit for men, and dare I say it doesn't for women. And I think a lot of women know this now. I mean, a lot of the original feminists are no longer around, but women today want the benefits of feminism, the same pay, the same work, same opportunity. They don't want to be hit on, sexually harassed, that type of thing. But I think that a lot of women today understand that feminism, taken as a whole, is a very toxic, and a very obnoxious and kind of soul-leeching, soul-eating belief system. And I think it's brought a lot of misery in the world. As a matter of fact, and I've thought about this many years, I think feminism has brought more misery than just about any belief system in the modern world, because what it does is it weakens the bonds of marriage. It tells women you don't need to be married to have a career, to have a kid. And it also tells women that men are not that important. And there's very few things that men necessarily need, but they do want respect. And they want to feel needed as they're going out to, get bring home the bacon. And I think for a lot of men, if they could work and have their wives not work or do a part-time job or something, be more committed to the home and everything, they'd like that. Now, whether that is a good or a bad, you have to decide. I mean, I know what I think. I think if it's part of human nature that men prefer things the more traditional way, you can't really change that. I mean, you'd have to do genetic engineering. There's a lot of women, though, who, and I've been watching statistics, more and more women are happy not being married. And I have friends that are female that don't appear to have any interest in being married. And so there's a huge movement of that in this society, and in a way it's the story of the replacement of religion with philosophy. And with religion you have certain ideas, Genesis, be fruitful and multiply. And the ancient world agreed with that. The ancient world, the population was not static. Like population today, most people live a fairly long life. In the ancient world, there was a lot of disease. There was war. There was also a lot of famine. And so in ancient Rome, if you didn't have a child, if you didn't get married and have a child, you had to pay the state a bachelor tax. So now the birth rate has dropped to an all-time low, and that's one argument to bring in people from other countries. So I think that never have people been less happy. The family is kind of dislocated. It's kind of torn apart, dismembered. And I think a lot of men have had a hard time finding a spouse that they're happy with, and there's this fight in these relationships for preeminence. And I think you've noticed that when a woman and a man are together and the woman makes more than the man, those relationships don't usually last. But in any event, getting back to, and if you have a beef with this, put it into your comments, because I know we're all default feminists now. We all depend on feminism. We all depend on, we don't have women depending on their families to take care of them until they get married, like in the ancient world, like until fairly recently. We all depend on, these families all depend on a mother and a father working together so they can have enough income so they can have the things that they want. But put in the comments at YouTube, put in your beef and I'll try to respond to it. But getting back to Epstein. Epstein's an evil person. Why would Bill Gates spend time with him? And you say he was a psychopath. He's very charming. Okay. He's very charming, but what he was accused of and convicted of was very serious. And Bill Gates, who's supposed to be this world's great philanthropist and love everybody and be woke, told Epstein, we need to rehabilitate your reputation. If you can imagine that. And that's why his wife got so mad. But I think ultimately Bill Gates identified more with Epstein's group of people who were they were male chauvinists. They saw women as objects to a certain extent, or to a great extent. He had pictures of nudes in his house. They talked in very graphic terms, but it was somebody that Gates could be honest with, and he couldn't be that with his wife. And it was somebody that he could be himself around, and he couldn't do that with his wife. So Epstein becomes this father confessor in Svengali. And they're both wealthy. They're both very wealthy. Obviously, Bill Gates is, at that time, the most wealthiest guy in the world, so nobody can really catch up with him. But I put in this article, why choose Marquis de Sade over Giacomo Casanova? Why choose de Sade over Casanova? De Sade got women through rape. One's French, the other's Italian. Through rape and through various other means of securing them. And Casanova was this really brilliant guy who he was going to be a priest. He obviously washed out of that, but he seduced women. He didn't have to get them and rape them. And so I think obviously Epstein was a very sick guy and he loved to rape girls. So he's like de Sade. So he didn't have to choose that guy, but maybe that's the person he ran into that he was able to talk to, and that it just kind of happened that way. I don't really see Bill Gates as a pedophile, but Gates has really nothing to be proud of, and you got to think that he must be miserable because he's given away all this money and he's helping to cure diseases in Africa, and he's becoming this great man. He's not just a very wealthy guy, and he's somebody, by the way, who was ruthless, and his company had the reputation for stealing software and blocking development from other companies. And if you're interested in this, read the book The Soul of the New Machine by Tracy Kidder, and it's a great explanation of what Bill Gates was like. But not a great guy, but everybody wants to be happy, and you're sitting on $150 billion and thinking to yourself, I'm not happy. I don't like this life I've got. My wife doesn't sleep with me. I'm the wealthiest guy in the world. My wife won't even sleep with me. And his wife is thinking, this pig, this male chauvinist, he meets his girlfriend once a year to have sex for 5 days. And I don't like that. And now he wants to hang around Epstein. I thought he was bad enough. And then he's hitting on these women at Microsoft. He's doing what bosses have done for centuries. It's nothing to be proud of, and it's not great man territory, but that's Bill Gates. He hit on his own employees. So, I'm getting to the end of this thing here, and I'm so glad that you tuned in, by the way. Miserable woke billionaires. How many of these people who are woke, and, Gates and Buffett are in the same category, how many of them are pretending to be woke, pretending to be liberal like Gates, and they're not liberal at all? They're ruthless businessmen, and they're sexist, and they want to ogle women, they want to have an affair, and they don't want to be woke, but they see their place in history, and that's what they go for. They clawed their way to the top. They bit and fought, and they lobbed hateful blasphemies towards heaven until they earned their billions, but then what? What's left? So in other words, friends, what's the lesson from this? We must be careful whom we follow for advice. Bill Gates followed the wrong person. We don't want to follow the advice of these stupid billionaires who are so arrogant, so stuck up, because they might just be ruthless psychopaths like wolves hiding under the guise of an angel. All that glisters is not gold. Well, thanks for tuning in, Kelly O'Connell. I really enjoyed hanging out with you. Come back. In the meantime, do me a favor and add yourself to my page, Kelly O Radio. Ciao.